Our government does not want public disclosure. That's the premise upon which all of us have to face and what we are standing on as we gather for this citizen hearing in 2013. It's been more than half a century of monitoring and interactions with non-humans by this government that does not want a single soul outside of inner sanctums to know. There is a formal policy of denial executed by President Harry S. Truman after July 1947 in the UFO crashes around Roswell. I have talked with a man who was working in the Naval lab in White Sands, and he said it is his understanding that it was an executive order by Harry S. Truman. It is not privy to the American public, and yet it is an executive order that carries through all of this time since 1947 with such force that agency after agency in the inertia of batons being passed has kept and strengthened and deepened this policy of denial to the point that I frankly am of the opinion that it is the suppression of the extraterrestrial interaction with this planet that is turning the United States into a complete totalitarian police state. In the early 1990s, a Las Cruces, New Mexico resident named Andrew Kisner met me to talk about leaked documents and information from two military sources at the White Sands Missile Range.
Went to the vault. And they were in there for about 5 minutes. And Howard comes out first, and Topin follows. And Topin's kind of got tears in his eyes, and he said that it's true. Well, this really caught my attention, so I was really astounded to hear, you know, this kind of reaction from him. So then Howard, he calls me over and he says, come on in. So I go in there, right, and it's a vault, and it's a small room, and it's got the filing cabinets and the safes. And it's got a table right there in the middle of the vault. The table's about the size of this, but square and taller. And on that table, he had this file laid out. And this file was, I mean, it was like all spread out on the table here, okay? And it had photographs and documents and the covers and everything. And he said, this is what it's all about, and he handed me one of the photographs. And I looked at it, and I had no idea what I was looking at. It was an old black and white photograph. It had a old truck in it. And down on the ground, and you could tell they were out in the desert, was some sort of a creature. It looked like, well, what I would call now an alien creature. I had no idea what I was looking at back then, so I said to Howard, well, what am I looking at here? He goes, well, what do you think? I said, I don't know. He says, alien creature from outer space, you big dummy. And I go, no, it is not. And he goes, you're looking right at one of these, and you still can't believe it? Won't believe it? That's incredible. So I looked at that photograph, and I looked at another photograph that had them laid out on a skid, and looked at two other photographs, and they had a very dark black background, and one of them was a headshot, and the other photograph was of it an elongated shot on a type of gurney. And I looked at the documents, and there was a lot of, you know, red ink, top secret. One of the words was magic, and magic was spelt with a J. And I even made a comment to Howard. I says, look at here, they can't even spell magic right. They spelled it with a J. It just looked like an old file, but the gauge of the year would have to be from the 30s or the 40s, just based on the truck. The aliens sort of looked like that one down in the Roswell Museum, but different too. Because it's black and white, you couldn't really get a lot of tone with the kind of skin it had. But if I had to describe it at all, it would have been like snake skin in sort of way.
Can you explain that further?
They had a whitish kind of appearance, but you could tell it had some color to it. And if I had to describe it as matches any other type of animal that I know of, it would have been like that of a white snake, say.
And could you discern scales?
Not really, no. No, but you could tell that they just looked like bumps, and who knows what they were. And it was throughout. But mostly like on the arm area and on the head area.
And was this being wearing any clothes?
No, you could tell that. And here are some renditions of drawings that I made of the photographs that I saw in Okinawa. And what you have here is a desert and the alien entity. Here's the guy in the jeans and the cowboy boots. Here's the truck, and here's the entity in the truck looking out. And in the actual photograph, though, you could barely make him out because of the angle of the sun and what it was doing from the slats to him. So I had to actually have this pointed out to me. This is what we call photograph number 1. This is another rendition. This is at the aircraft hangar. Okay. Pretty much, this is really a rendition because of the angle and all. I really am not an artist, okay, so I couldn't really draw it to the right angle. But over here is the military man in his khaki pants, his brown shoes, and this is the front of the aircraft hangar. This is the opening here. And I tried to, what really stood out for me in this photograph was the angle of the slants from the panes of the windows from the hangar, of the style of hangar that it was. Mm-hmm. And here's the alien that's mostly intact, and next to him, or it, is the other alien that was crumpling in a fetal position, and most of its side had been badly damaged. And here's the alien that's next to it, and I tried to make a rendition here of the crumpling and everything, but I didn't do a good job, really. But most of its head, as I recall, was badly damaged either through charring of some sort or other damage.
And burned.
Or burned, yeah. Okay. And here's another rendition. Now, in the photograph, this is, of course, all black, okay? But what you're seeing is where the flash took the photograph of what you see here, and it's a gurney in an elongated fashion, okay? And the alien entity laying on top of the gurney. And there you have it. And evidently in the same space, they took a close-up of the alien's head from the neck on up with the same black background. And here it is, as I best recall. I tried to get as best to make it look as real as I could by not giving too much detail with the eyes. But the eyes, the sockets are very almond-shaped, and they're fatter up here, and they skinny down, okay? They're fatter here, and they skinny down. And the blotting I'm trying to describe here, okay, looks sort of, well, veiny, I guess you could say, or just bumps. And that was the best I could describe it here.
And this reminded you of reptilian?
Yeah, you could tell that it was sort of reptilian-ish, but at the same time, no, you really couldn't because of the black and white photo, okay? I do recall that its neck was, in comparison to its head, really this skinny, and it had a lot of wrinkles.
As if it were old?
No, as if it was just the way it was, the way it was.
But did that remind you also of a reptile?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I tried to make a description of how long its fingers are and in comparison to its wrist. Mm-hmm. This is a better drawing, okay, of its hand, palm in this fashion, all right, without a thumb. If it had a thumb, it was this sort of a nib-looking thing here. And it did have these slanted tip fingertips, and on the tips, you could tell it was sort of a roundness, or what I call a suction cup. Linda, there is nothing on this earth that we know of that looks anything like this. It's not a human being. I'm telling you straight up. It wasn't a monkey. It wasn't an animal of any kind. It was like nothing that I had ever seen, and that's all I could say. It was definitely not a human. It was definitely not an animal that we know of.
What emotion did you feel?
I was in shock. I mean, what can I say? I mean, I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't even accept it at the time. It took hours for me to even accept what I had saw. Even with a guy that was older than me that was telling me, look at what you're looking at here, okay? These were not fakes. This was real stuff. I was overwhelmed.